Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
8:07. Happy Tuesday morning to you. Brian Eamon, Brian Wilson. We've got Larry Kudlow from CC coming up at 8:36. Yesterday on our show, we had Newt Gingrich and Ron Paul in the clock hour. Newt Gingrich was out campaigning in Frederick yesterday. We happen to know that Byron York was there, the chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Good morning, Byron. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Doing great.
So what did Mr. Gingrich say on the stump yesterday? Did you learn anything? Do you think perhaps maybe the days of the campaign are coming to an end for Mr. Gingrich?
Well, Gingrich is, to use his word, or at least a word he says applies to this, is redirecting his campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I think the interesting thing about it is he stopped talking quite a while ago about actually winning it himself. And then he was talking about denying Romney the 1,144 delegates that are required to clinch the nomination. And now he's kind of conceding that Romney probably will get to the magic number and redirecting his efforts toward creating a conservative platform for the convention and sort of holding Romney, making Romney commit to a lot of conservative ideas. He says he's still going to travel, although he says he'll do it less expensively, which means no charter planes and the big blue Newt bus is gone. But he's still going to do some traveling and still do campaign appearances. But it's clearly a very scaled-down campaign.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that basically if you get the nomination, you're really under no obligation to follow the platform. Isn't that true?
You're absolutely right, but I think that what Gingrich is trying to do is capitalize on the distrust that some conservatives still feel for Romney, and Gingrich is saying things like, "Look, is Romney going to run as a true conservative, or is he going to shake the Etch-a-Sketch again and run as something else?" And he said the delegates are much more conservative than Romney himself. Now that's open to argument, but his plan is to get the delegates to approve this thing and then try to hold Romney to it. So, look, he said, I don't have enough hubris to say I came in third in the delegates and I'm now going to dictate the platform. He says that most of the delegates would approve of conservative ideas, and they just want to hold Romney to them.
All right, so we're in voting day in Maryland. You look at the polls, and they suggest that Romney will win by 25 points in Maryland. Probably of the 7 or 8 Republicans actually who live in the District of Columbia, he'll get about, probably 3/4 of that vote. And then Wisconsin, he's up by 8. So it's going to be a very good day for Romney. What happens at the end of the day for Rick Santorum?
Well, I think this is where we get. First of all, there's a gap now after today, after these April 3 things. There's not another primary until New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Delaware on the 24th. So we've got a 3-week gap. But clearly, what Santorum is going to be desperately trying to do is sort of remain relevant here and say that there's a reason for him to continue. And one of the reasons that he does continue is, one, he believes he can win his home state of Pennsylvania. I think if he loses there, everybody says that's probably time to go. But he believes that the schedule in May is really, really good for him. If you look at May, it's got North Carolina, Indiana, West Virginia, Nebraska, huge state for him, Kentucky, Arkansas, Texas. So he thinks, gee, if I can just hold on till May, I can start winning some. But, that could be very difficult to do, because what we're seeing now is so many voices in the Republican Party calling on him to leave. And just this week, Romney has picked up the endorsements of George H.W. Bush, Marco Rubio, and Paul Ryan. Rubio and Ryan, perhaps the 2 hottest stars in the GOP right now.
Ron Paul was on our show yesterday, and I asked him, are you going to get out of the race? And if when would be the time when you would get out of the race? And he said he's not going to get out of the race until all the votes are counted. And if Romney wins, then Romney wins. And then I asked him, would he support, would he endorse the Republican nominee? And he said it was too early to tell at this time.
He hadn't decided.
He hadn't decided yet. Do you have a feeling one way or the other of which way he would go? And how big of a problem could that be for Republicans if Ron Paul doesn't get behind Mitt Romney?
Yeah, well, first of all the other Republican camps view the Ron Paul campaign as completely different because it's more of a movement than a campaign.
Okay.
But it hasn't, it's interesting. Ron Paul has attracted a lot of big rallies, but that hasn't turned into huge vote counts. I mean, he hasn't won anything. He has some delegates. But bottom line is, a lot of Republican insiders believe that Ron Paul is very concerned about the political future of his son, Rand Paul, the senator from Kentucky, and does not want to just set off an enormous stink bomb in the party that would eventually could damage his son's fortunes. So there are a number of Republicans in I guess, competing camps who believe that Ron Paul will get in line and be behind the Republican nominee.
I hear what you say about the delegates. One thing Ron Paul pointed out yesterday, and he's right about this, if you look at the polls, the head-to-head matchup of Ron Paul versus Barack Obama, or Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama, or Rick Santorum versus Barack Obama, Ron Paul does just as well as anybody.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think here again, a lot of political types think these matchups are hypothetical now because, I mean, an election is always one guy versus the other guy, and the Republican guy hasn't been chosen yet. I mean, everybody sort of believes it's Romney, but that's not a reality. So does that show you what kind of polling we're going to get in October when you have one versus the other? It doesn't. I
want to change topics a moment and talk about the president yesterday lecturing, or some people say lobbying, the Supreme Court. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's something about this that makes me feel a little uneasy about that process. It's almost like you're lobbying a judge after he's heard all the arguments and about to have a ruling on the case. And you wouldn't normally do that. That would be, in a criminal case, that would be considered inappropriate. Do you think it's inappropriate in this particular case? Is it unusual?
Well, I think it is. Yes, it is unusual. It's a very high-profile case. And I think you're absolutely right. The president also just kind of almost came in late because a number of liberal voices have basically said to Justice Kennedy, who has the reputation as the independent in all of this, nice reputation you got there. Be too bad if you do anything that is. I mean, that's what's going on in broad daylight. On the other hand, the justices are all adults. They've dealt with high-profile cases before, and they could do it. But I think there's no doubt that a lot of liberal commentators, Obama supporters, and perhaps even the president himself are sending messages to the Supreme Court. You know the right thing to do, don't you?
Yeah, and it may not only be Kennedy; it could be the Chief Justice as well that they're trying to lobby. But who knows?
Well, I was not among those commentators who were screaming that this whole thing is over. Listening to those oral arguments as I did and reading the transcripts along with them, I really honestly believe there's no way to say which way some of these guys are going to go. It does not appear to be. It wasn't a slam dunk before, and it doesn't appear to be a slam dunk to me right now.
Byron, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Great to be here. Thank you.